Thank you, my friends, for taking time to speak with me today.
Hey, no problem, brother.
I wanted to ask about the creative process for this album. How long did it take to put together, and did you start right after the last recording?
I'll go ahead and start off. So I'll say this album was a lot easier than our last album, mostly because the demo and State of Emergency was more of a learning process, like any first album is. And so that album took forever to do because COVID basically delayed it for a whole year. So we've had a lot of riffs and lyrics just kind of, waiting to be recorded. So I figured this album was a lot easier, a lot quicker. We had things ready to go, and I don't think it could have come out any better. Like, we're pretty happy with it. What do you think, James?
Well, most of the songs, like Street Metal Violence, just a couple of songs, I started writing those around 2021, 2022. And I just had those riff and garage band on my phone, like riff A, riff B. But then after releasing the album State of Emergency, then we started working on the riffs and the songs, and everything fell in place.
Yeah, our process is pretty simple. Since we're like the leaders, I guess you could say, we really do start with the guitar first, and kind of everything falls into place after that. So we do the guitars, it's all on GarageBand. We kind of piece it together like that, and then hopefully everybody else can kind of find their way in there. That's kind of what we do.
And one of the things I love about the album is the vibe behind it. It made me feel like I was listening to tracks that were set off a Kill 'Em All. The guitar at work is phenomenal.
That's not the first time we've heard that, actually. And to be honest, Kill 'Em All is one of my favorite albums. It's definitely my favorite Metallica album. So I guess that's pretty good compliment. Then that's exactly what we were going for.
Hell yeah, it definitely is. And I wanted to ask you, and speaking of that style, I wanted to ask about Executioner's Reign. I think that's a great track and definitely has a great feel to it.
Yeah, I would say this is the song that I primarily wrote musically and lyrically, of course, with the help of James. But musically, I'm just like, all right, what's the craziest thing I can come up with? And some of those riffs are somewhat old, but once it's time to start kicking things in the high gear, I'm like, how can I make the song even crazier? And I'm usually the guy who's like, all right, I should probably not make the song so crazy, but sorry, that's what I do. So I'm like, let me just make the craziest song I can. And also, that happens to be one of the more accessible songs on the album as well. So that one, definitely a favorite of mine. And from what I've heard, a lot of people seem to like it as well.
Yeah, it's definitely, I love the style of it. I love the flow. It's a standout track for me. It's one that definitely drug me in and made me want more.
Nice.
And speaking of wanting more, I wanted to ask about Shredder's Dream because that's another track to me that totally kicks ass.
I'll let you take that one, James.
Yeah, well, for that song, Matthew wrote that song. Uh, well, it was kind of like it was both of us together. We grab a one piece of riff, and then we grab another riffs. Like we put them all together. Like the intro, he created the intro, and then I created some of the other riffs that are in the middle, and we just put them all together. I was influenced by Lodestar, a band from Italy. They're like a really, really underground, and Killing. I think they're our American metal, but yeah, we put them all together like piece by piece, and it came out perfectly.
It's pretty funny because
Yeah,
we had two songs separately, from what I remember, but they sounded so similar. I'm like, why not just put them together and make one long song? Because I
yeah,
think the riffs were totally usable, and I feel like if there was two songs that sounded pretty much the same, honestly, they flow together pretty well. Let's just put them together and see what we can do.
I also wanted to ask you about the album artwork and the artist that was involved in it.
well, the artist, he's from South America. Uh, we've been doing all the artworks, all everything with the band with the same person because he's really good at it. You know, back when we started out with the state of emergency, the black and white one, like the guy in the middle with like a metal head right in the middle. That was the same person. And I think we went with somebody from South America because the currency is cheaper versus United States. We have to pay like $1,000, $2,000, and like no. And at first we were like, we don't have too much money. What can we do? I have an idea. Let me call this guy that I know, and it worked.
I wanted to ask you as well, what's the next step for the band? What can we look for next?
Yeah, that's going to be the challenging part. The living situation is pretty unique right now. Not impossible, but pretty much the rest of the band is here in our hometown in Lake Worth, Florida. James decided to be brave and move for school to Germany, which is like the capital of heavy metal. A lot of networking going on, that's for sure. We visited a few times, and who knows, maybe I'll even make the jump at some point, even if it's just for a few months. The thing is, we have to reorganize the band because, well, the drummer, he was pretty much a hired gun, which I've known him since elementary school. He's a wizard, but I've got a few people in mind to keep that flag going. Our bass player Guido, he's still on board and travels very often. The main thing is being patient and seeing how we can reorganize to a more international scale because we've done all we could really in Florida, I would say. Of course, we love our little venues that we kind of cycle through, but we want to wait for that next step as well. So we've got to somehow figure it out. And I don't see us calling it quits anytime. We just got to pull back and see what happens pretty much.
And speaking on that, I wanted to ask, how is the scene in Florida nowadays?
I'll let you explain that one, James, because I'm sure you'll have a good time talking about that.
Well, the metal just in the US, it's big, but since the United States is big, you have to travel hours in car to meet somebody. And even if you have a one or two friends, you have to like drive across the state, like going from the south to the north to Orlando, and it's too far away. Um, I kind of got tired of doing that, and I just wanted something just like walk and have fun,
Mhm.
and that's what I've been doing over here. I've been going to shows. Yesterday, I was at the Dying Victims Metal in Hell in Essen, and it was awesome, incredible. The metal scene and everything, old school. Back then when we were trying to do the same thing in Florida in Lake Worth, and many people didn't know what we were doing, like young
Sure.
people. They used to call it, oh, Motley Crue, oh, you know, like walking down the street over like leather and stuff. Oh, Motley Crue, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, call it whatever. But over here in Germany, I feel more like at home versus over there like a stranger. But you have more freedom, to do anything and impress people because they're not used to that genre. Over here, it's more, you have to be more original, but you have more bands, more people to work with.
That's pretty much it.
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you as well, if you could tell me how the band became a reality.
This was a pretty cool story. So I usually, back in the day, I didn't even really know local shows existed, right? But I was in this band and they're like, all right, we have to experiment and go to a local show. And I'm like, all right. So I'm in my battle jacket, the patches, and all that stuff. We go to the show where everyone's like in bathing suits and tank tops, and they're all beating the hell out of each other in the pit. And I'm like, all right, this is not what I expected. But the only other guy who had the same look as me was James. So
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, hey,
true.
nice Venom shirt. You're really cool. Okay, bye. This venue is scaring me. So, he leaves for the army and he gets deployed and all that. And 4 years later, he somehow finds me on Facebook. And that's when things really started. So there was a 4-year delay, but we finally found the right band members at that time. So, it was meant to be.
And I wanted to ask you as well, if you could each speak to me about your musical development and at what age you began.
Hmm. Let me see. I started probably 2011 because my very first big concert that changed my life was Slash and Ozzy Osbourne on the Scream tour. And ever since then, like, I'm usually pretty hard headed. I don't like doing things. All right. So my parents were like, "You're going to learn guitar." And I really didn't want to. But, they forced me. And look at me today. It's my favorite thing in the world. So, uh, you know, you start off with, well, I took lessons. So I'm a little bit slightly more into the musical theory. But at the end of the day, I just try to play what sounds cool. That's kind of where I'm at. So I've been playing for like what? I Something about math. I don't know what that is. Pretty long time. How about that?
Well, for me, it was different. I was raised in South America, and over there, the scene it's really tough. They're united, and so when I started hanging out at the age of 13, well, 14, Violator from Brazil. That was my first show ever. And then after going to the show, I met a lot of people, and then that's how I started hanging out with them. With like that's how I started like that's how I got introduced to metal. And then one day my grandpa he bought an electric guitar for me for Christmas, and then I just started playing music, But around that time, I already had all these influences from Chile, the band Panagram, Necrosis, um, even Brazil, early Sepultura,
Oh yeah.
Sarcophago, Mutilator, all these extreme bands with like the riffs, like the fast riffs and stuff. And then later on, I got influenced by the German scene, like the Creator and stuff. And later on, it was the Bay Area, but I always liked the German side, like the more aggressive, like side, like the evilish. And then now I'm here, so I love it.
And I wanted to ask you each, what do you feel has been the best advice that has been given to you along your musical journey?
The
I
best
would
of,
say, oh, you can
oh,
go
you
ahead
got it.
first.
No, you go first. I just went.
Okay. What I've learned, I don't know if we've really gotten too much advice, but definitely from personal experience, unfortunately, is to not trust everybody you talk to, especially when it comes to producers, promoters, organizers, because we played a show, they promised us money, it was a very far trip, and then they didn't follow through on that, and, stuff like that, or uh, if you find the wrong producer, they'll start ripping you off and they'll charge you even though you're not even doing anything. You're just kind of waiting around. Oh, they charge you got to find the right people, which luckily we do pay top dollar for these people, but they're totally worth it. They're totally chill, non toxic. And also, unfortunately, because I like mixed genre shows, but depending on where you're at, I guess you shouldn't really do them because if you're playing this crazy music and you are playing with non-crazy people in other genres, they are either scared of you or I don't know what, but sometimes it's not the best to go out of your circle, I guess. So basically find your venues, find your fans, and cater to them. To be honest, because if you even stare at the wrong person at the wrong time, the whole internet thing, who knows what can happen. So I keep it tight. I play the shows. I have fun. I sell merch. I sign things, and I call it a day. So that's what I've got to say personally.
For me, for advice, right?
Yes.
Before starting the band, like when I was out of the army, this was around 2019. Um, I went to Chile for after the army. I was visiting Chile, my family, my friends, and then one of my friends, he's called Pablo. He told me, what you have to do, brother, you have to pick your guitar and teach them how to do it. Teach them how you grew up on the streets here in South America and put all that emotions and play through it so they learn from you. And I was like, I'll do that. I'll do it, you know. And then every time I will be playing a show, right, in Lake Worth or anywhere, I'll have the image of like the Sepultura early days, you know, with like uh covering my face with the hair and like going crazy, you know, bullet belts, spikes, high top shoes, you know, like early creator and stuff. And that's what I always did. I just said I'm just gonna be myself and do whatever, play the things that I grew up with. And for a lot of people in Florida, it was different because we tried finding a lot of bands in our style, but we couldn't. I mean,
Hmm.
there's some of them, but there's not many in the South American style.
I wanted to ask you as well, if you could pick your ultimate touring partner, who would it be?
Hmm. You can take that.
Uh, yes. Well, since it depends. If I go here in Germany or Europe, I would say I will play with our friends from Belgium. I was hanging out with them yesterday. They gave me this shirt,
Oh,
Violence
you got
Sin.
a shirt? That's so cool.
Violence Sin. They're from Belgium. Really good friends. I will play with Venator from Austria. They play traditional heavy metal. They're actually working on their second album, and I will love to play with Sphinx. They just released their second album. They play like a death thrash style, which is really good. I was talking to the singer yesterday, and he's good.
Let me see. If I were to choose touring partners, I'm not sure about the states, but there are some cool guys. I think the Texas thrash scene is exploding.
Oh
Actually,
yeah, yeah, you're right.
there's some guys that have always wanted to play with us. Unfortunately, the U.S. is huge, and we don't really know how to traverse that. So in Texas, there's bands called Labyrinth. They released an EP. They want to play with
Yep.
us. We somehow have to organize it. I don't know how. We want to do it. There's another one called Powerhouse. They're just as young as us from Texas. I think they actually released their CD through Witches Brew Records, just like us. So we already have that kind of connection.
Don't forget about the band from North Carolina, Interceptor.
Interceptor. They're like a Venom sounding band, but they are so cool. And they're actually playing Tampa, but I can't make it, so it is what it is. But if I were to choose on the European side, definitely the bands that James recommended because Violent Sin, they're really cool. We get along very well. We've hung out a few times, and the singer Francois, he actually came to see us rehearse, and there's a video of us playing together. So
In
we already have that
Florida. Yeah.
connection. So I would say there's definitely a good chance. I think it's easier somehow to team up with some European bands, I guess, because they have trains and easier transportation. You don't have to drive through. I don't know. Nobody can afford to travel too much in the U.S., or at least I can't. So I don't know. That we're still figuring it out, but it's gonna happen. We have the connections, so it's all good.
I wanted to ask you, what is the best way to get a physical copy of the album and any merchandise that you have?
Yeah, Bandcamp is always number one for any independent artists. Our Bandcamp just got updated, so not only do we have the new CDs and of course the previous merch, but we have new patches on there. And I just now uploaded our Living Fast patches. That's our James's solo project, more melodic. We put patches on
Heavy
there.
metal.
Heavy metal, very, very honestly, I think that's his best work, and of course, I love to be part of it as well. So we have a lot of merch on Bandcamp. What is it? Blackdenimrage.bandcamp.com. And if you're in Europe, witchesbrewthrashes.bandcamp.com, because that's where our label is at. It's in Germany. But I have plenty of CDs to pass around as well. So United States, come to our Bandcamp.
Excellent.
You got it.
And lastly, I wanted to ask you both if you could give a message to your fans, what would that message be, my friends?
I would say just regardless the situation, what's going on in the world or whatever you go through, just be yourself. That's the best advice you can give to someone, just be yourself. Don't give up. Mainly because our lyrics there are about that, like about struggling personally, like about going through life or feeling repressed about this or life, whatever. And the answer to that, to all those songs we have and we have released, the solution to that is just be yourself and have attitude towards life.
Hmm. That's it.
I wanted to take a moment to thank both of you for taking time to speak with me first, and second, for creating an album that took me back in time, that made me feel the excitement and the raw feel of what thrash should be like, what the guitar sounds should be like. It really brought back memories to an old man like me that loved that era and loved that style, and you guys have brought back to light, and I greatly appreciate it, my friends.
Well, thank you, Robert, for having us anytime.
We do what we love. Thrash all the way.
Thank you, my friends, and you have a great rest of your day.
You as well.
You as well. Thank you very much for the
Cheers.
opportunity.
Thank
Heavy
you.
metal.